This is the Smart New Income Next Gen Entrepreneur Podcast with Andy Asher.
Well, hi everyone. Our Next Gen Entrepreneur of the Week is Carrie Olson. For years, Carrie was in the corporate world, and while helping with some employee training programs for her company, she discovered she had a penchant for doing voiceover work, an industry that's measured in the billions of dollars. Now, Carrie loved it and had early success. Well, now she's no longer a corporate worker, but in business for herself. Carrie Olson, this week's Smart New Income Next Gen Entrepreneur.
But, tell us a little bit about yourself first of all.
Sure. So I'm a voiceover actor as of last year. It's been a little over a year now. And before that, the reason I say almost an overnight success, I only learned what voiceover was about four to 5 months before I was able to quit my job to go full time in voiceover. So as far as my journey from learning about it to going full time, that was a short amount of time, but there was a lot of prep that went before that. There were things I was doing in my careers before I got into voiceover that were contributing to my success, my fairly quick success in voiceover. So I was doing things like hosting podcasts like you are now.
Uh-huh.
And I worked in e-learning, so I narrated courses that I wrote and hosted webinars. So I was doing a lot of things with my voice before I got into voiceover. So when I did finally discover that I could do it as an industry in and of itself, or as a career in and of itself, I did move pretty quickly to go from amateur to professional voiceover actor.
So did you have like an 8 to 5 job? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was working for just a corporate company doing online training. So I was developing the courses. So on the technical side, so I was sitting in front of a computer all day developing online courses, but they needed narration. And so I started narrating my own online courses. And I love that job because I love educating and I love making online courses. But I had a baby earlier in 2014, and I wanted to do something that I could spend more time at home with my family, with my husband and my daughter. And just by chance was listening to a podcast on my way to work one day on my 40-minute commute. It was a podcast episode I'd never heard before. It was a podcast I'd never even heard of. I just randomly picked it. And it was a podcast sort of like yours. It's one about people who were doing unique things. And the host was interviewing a woman named Allison Steele, who was a voice actor who'd been doing it for about 20 years. And I was just half listening. But then about halfway through the episode, I thought something kind of clicked, and I thought that sounds like something maybe I could do. And at the end, Allison said that she offers training and coaching, and I called her up and got some lessons, and within weeks was booking jobs with voiceover.
Wow, that is amazing. So did you go to school or training, or did that kind of happen on the job?
A lot of it was, well, my training with Allison has been huge, and I still train with her regularly. I think that's really important. And then during those first few weeks of getting training with Allison, I dug my teeth into everything I could find voiceover related. So got online, I bought workshops, I bought webinars, I read books, I listened to podcasts. So I did a lot of self-education, but a lot, my training with Allison was huge too. So I felt really prepared in a short amount of time just because I was consuming so much information.
So you knew that you went after this with a focus, a laser focus. It looked like something that you must have just felt was perfect, or you obviously were clearly motivated, weren't you?
I was very motivated. At the beginning, I didn't know where it was going to go. But the early validation of getting jobs within weeks, that's when I got my first job, and it was a $450 job to do a 2-minute narration for a company in Denmark. And, up until that point, I had been auditioning and, just kind of putting my feelers out. But when that happened and I made real money, that's when my husband and I both thought, there's something here. Let's really pursue this and see what can happen.
Wow, that's cool. So you quit your day job at some point. What was that like?
It was really, really risky. I think, for any entrepreneur who's going through that transition and they're at that spot where they're making enough money with their side gig, that they feel you're at least close. Maybe I could survive if I quit my job. That's a tough position to be in, and it was hard. There was my husband and I talked about it for a long time. I got, advice from my voiceover coach and other entrepreneurs that we know, but we decided ultimately to take the leap. I was getting enough work that I replaced my day job income. And the thing with voiceover work is you don't always know how steady it's going to be. And especially early on, I wasn't established. So it's not like I had a bunch of clients that I could fall back on that were regulars. I was still kind of building that. So it was a big risk for us to do that, but it was something I really wanted to try and to pursue. And especially, voiceover fits into our lifestyle a lot better. We were able to go on a 5-month cross-country road trip in a travel trailer after I quit, just because my husband's an author and I could work from anywhere. So we built a little booth in our travel trailer in the bathroom, and we hit the road. And so voiceover just really enabled us to do more things that we wanted to do in our life that my corporate job wouldn't allow us to do.
I'm just getting these images in my head about going across country in a travel trailer and then jumping into the trailer and doing a voiceover. It makes me chuckle. It was crazy. I don't necessarily recommend that. We didn't really know what we were getting into, and I did record a few spots from the side of the road on the highway. There were a couple. Every once in a while, you get a job that the producer or client says, "We need this back ASAP," and you're driving down the road, you pull over, and you do what you got to do. Yeah, as long as you can keep the background sound out of there, it probably actually sounds better.
Yeah, I mean, the trailer was a great environment, but yes, background noise, that was a challenge.
Yeah. Okay, so when you quit your job, was it a time issue then, or was it in other words, you couldn't put enough time into the recording or doing voiceover, or was it a money where you thought, geez, I'm making as much or more money this way, so why not do it more? What was the thought process there?
It was definitely the latter. It was that I was making so much money in voiceover part-time, because at that point, my schedule in voiceover was I would go to my day job 10 hours a day, including commute, sometimes longer, and come home from work, still do all of my family things, play with my daughter, put my daughter to bed, have dinner with my husband, and then with whatever time I had left, I would audition. And I would use there's a subscription site called voices.com, and that's where I started off doing all of my early auditions. So I would audition for, as many hours as I could get in the evening before just being totally tuckered out. And then on the weekends, I would audition as much as possible. So I was very part-time, but I was making a decent living with just my part-time work. So that was the conversation that my husband and I were having, was if I'm able to make this much money part-time in voiceover, the possibilities, are almost endless if I, put full-time into that. So that was our conversation. And so we decided to quit my job so that I could devote more time to voiceover and just see where the ceiling was, see how much money we could make.
Now, our image is that it's just an easy job and you don't have to work very hard, put in a few hours and then you're done for the day. Is that what it's like, or is it a little bit more grueling at times?
That's definitely not what it's like. And that's actually one of the impressions of voiceover that I'm actively working to dispel, because I know that, a lot of people think, well, you're just talking. Anyone can talk. We've all been talking. You just get paid to talk. But there's a lot more that goes into it. The first thing that I always tell anybody who wants to get into voiceover is to hire a coach. And sometimes people have laughed at me in my face to say, why would I get a coach to teach me how to talk? I know how to talk, but there is a lot more to it than that. It is a skill, and that's why it's, not just anybody can get in and do it. That's why it's a very selective process, and there are only a few that are making, really good livings doing it, because it's like any other business. To be a mechanic, to be a welder, to be a doctor, to be a teacher, you go through training, and not just anyone can jump in and do that. And it's the same kind of thing with voiceover. There are all types of different techniques and skills and things that you need to have in your arsenal and be able to do, not to mention the business side of it and client relations and being able to handle yourself under pressure and dealing with the competitive nature of the profession.
Yeah, and before I forget, Carrie, how old are you?
I am 31.
Okay.
I'll be 32 in a couple weeks.
Well, congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank
And
you.
so how long have you been doing voiceover now?
I've been doing it full time for a little over a year. So November of 2014 was when I quit my job to do it full time. So this is now January of 2016. So a little over a full year of full time.
Now, do you have a theatrical background or anything that would have given you an indication that this would be something you'd be doing?
I do not have a theatrical background. It's something that the acting piece of it is something that I guess I always had in me that I didn't know because I really just took to it. So the voice work, like I mentioned, I've done a lot of that with my podcasting and narrating courses and hosting webinars. And the acting part, with my training from Allison and other, I started taking improv classes and things like that. That's really helped, but I really love it. I enjoy the acting part of it.
So that something you've developed that you really like. And what does a coach tell you to do? In other words, I saw in a little bit in your bio that I think in your first hour or something you made all kinds of progress. What does a coach do to that makes a difference?
So one of the things that a lot of people have a tendency to do when you get behind a microphone is they start to project and they start reading things like they're reading things. And so one of the biggest jobs of a coach is to get you to relax and to one of the biggest buzzwords that you'll hear in the voiceover industry is conversational. Everyone wants a conversational read. And if you listen to the radio and TV, you don't get a lot of booming announcery voices anymore. It's like you and I are chatting right now.
Right.
And the ironic thing about voiceover is that as natural as it is for you and I to be chatting right now, most people have a real hard time getting to this conversational place if they're told to. So we can all do it naturally, but it's actually really hard to do on demand. And so coaches will give you all kinds of different techniques. They'll listen to your tone and try to find where you fit into the industry, because not everyone, there are different, it's like television rules. There are people who are going to be more of a protagonist type, someone who's going to be the best friend, someone who's going to be the chatty mom. And so they'll help you develop, different characters, if you will, that your voice would be a good fit for.
Oh, that's great advice. Great advice. Yeah. So the coach helped you with that, and when you are learning how to be a voice actor, now I'm going to define voice actor as maybe somebody who's acting different than yourself, maybe for cartoon or animation. And the same challenge, I suppose, is there too, to be natural. That's hard to do, especially when you're doing some crazy character role.
Right, and that's true for, on-camera actors and for voice actors. And I think everyone has their own process. Some people, there's the whole method acting method where you really try and immerse yourself and, you're coming from a really real place. And there are people who kind of think of it more as putting on a character. So there are all different types of techniques and different things that work for you. I don't think that there's one right way. I think that if you are able to get to that spot where you're communicating with your audience and you're conveying the emotion and feelings that is being called for in your script, whatever method you need to do to get there, you can experiment. You can definitely get coaching and take the advice of others who have more experience, but really find what works best for you to get to that place.
So you eventually hit it after working maybe consistently, was it a couple of months?
It was 4 months.
4 months. Okay. So you had experience going through the discouragement and the frustration. Tell us a little bit about that. I assume you did anyway.
Yes, it's a competitive industry, and especially the way that I got started. I mentioned the subscription site voices.com, and there are others out there. There's one called voice123.com. Those are kind of the two big ones, and they are sites that allow you to pay a monthly or annual subscription fee to get auditions emailed to your inbox that match your voice profile, and you can get tens of these auditions per day, and so if you're full-time and this is the route you choose to go, which is actually what I did early on, You can spend all day getting these auditions into your inbox and auditioning for everything that fits you. And depending on your skill level and just what comes in that day, you could, you might not book anything that day. You might book one or two, but there's definitely going to be more that you're not booking than you are. And I've heard a ratio between, when you're first starting out, you might have to do between 70 and 100 auditions on average before you get your first job. So for most people, there is a whole lot of, you might call it rejection, or it seems on the outside like rejection. But the way that I've come to really think about it is that the auditioning is the job. So if you can think of it with that kind of mindset, the auditioning is the job. And when you book a job, that's kind of just the gravy on top. That's just or the cherry on top, rather. So if you can get into that mindset, then it makes it less difficult to deal with quote unquote rejection. I actually teach now a class for beginning voice actors. And what I tell them is to not, when you audition, do your job, do your best, and then let it go. Don't obsess over each audition and, am I going to get that call back? Am I going to get that like? Do your best and know that you've done what you came there to do, and then let it go. Sure. And it's hard to get there sometimes, but if you're going to be doing this type of work, I think that's something you have to be comfortable with.
So where do you want to go with this? Or maybe you don't have to worry about that. Do you have a goal? Do you have something you want to achieve?
Absolutely. So I was fortunate enough to sign on with several pretty big agencies really early on in my career. Obviously, it's still early in my career. But so what agencies allow you to do is they can send you, get you access to bigger, better auditions. So more national TV and radio commercials are going to be at your disposal if you are at, a decent sized agency. So my goals are to book more of that type of work, but also just to keep growing my business organically. Of course, there's auditioning, there are subscription sites, there are agencies. These are all different ways you can get auditions. But one of the best ways that I found for me is just to do my own marketing, to depend on myself more. And coming from sort of an entrepreneurial background, my husband is self-employed and has owned his own business for years. That came really naturally to me. So,
well, give us a hint on how someone would do that.
So one of the best ways, first of all, I would say step one, make sure that you are set up to be in this outreach stage. You don't want to be trying to market yourself if you don't have a microphone yet, or if you don't have training yet. So those would be the first steps. But if you do want to, if you've got those things down and you feel you're competitive in the industry, one thing you can do is make a list of all of your ideal clients, people that you would just love to work with. And a lot of times you can get those by, just seeing what's out there, or if you've been getting booked for a certain type of work, think, well, what's next? What would be the next, step for me along those lines? Make a list of those clients and then contact them. You can cold call, you can email, follow them on social media, but it's all about relationships, reaching out and offering your service as a solution to those people. And just follow up with them. It's as with any other industry, market yourself, have a web presence, have an online, social media presence, and try to be as many places as possible so that you can be in front of these people that you want to work with.
That's great advice. One of the early bits of advice I had I've been in this space, a digital space now since 2009. Is to be everywhere, and there's some limits to that, but I think at least attempting to, it really makes a difference, and sounds like that's what you've adopted to some degree. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, so you're going to be a voice actor, and that's what you want to be. And it's interesting. You can do that all your life. You just protect your voice and make sure you take care of it, and it's pretty exciting, isn't it?
It is. It's been amazing for me because, again, I don't have a background in acting. I didn't know this was coming my way. It was really kind of random the way that I got into it. So my life is very different from it was just a year and a half ago. So it is really exciting work. I feel really fortunate to be in it, to have had early success in it. and I love it. It's such a fun industry. So I definitely still encourage people to do it, even though I will caution against, it's not just talking like we've talked about before, but it is a lot of fun. And if you feel that it's something that would is in your wheelhouse and you want to express yourself creatively this way, I think it's a great industry.
In anything we do, we have to be determined, and we have to be motivated. But at the same token, especially in the creative fields, you look at yourself and you look at others, and there's a quality of insecurity, you might say. So I suppose I'm asking you, was there some magic that you felt you had, or not? Am I looking at that wrong?
That's an interesting question. I think that judging from just the way that things worked out for me, I wouldn't say that there's magic. I would say that I was very intentional and very dedicated to the work, and intentional about what I wanted to accomplish, and really trusted my coach. So one of my earliest experiences, the third job that I ever booked, was for a national radio campaign. And which, if your listeners and watchers don't know that, it's a pretty big deal. And so I'd never recorded before in a professional studio, but I had my coach to fall back on, and she walked me through every step of the process. So any insecurities that I would have felt, she was able to help me get through that. So again, I don't think that it's magic. I think that it's having a good support system and trusting the people around you, and then also trusting yourself, because when I got into the studio, it would have been easier for me to say, okay, I'm brand new here. I've never done this before. And that wouldn't really put my client's mind at ease any. So I went into it with the attitude of, even though I've never done this before at this level, I'm going to conduct myself as if I've been doing this for years, and as if, I'm the professional that they are expecting. I'm going to solve their problem and trust my training. And even though it hadn't been much at that point, but it was enough to get the job done, trust in my natural abilities, and just do what they asked me to do, and not take anything personally. Because a lot of times those studio sessions, you're behind a glass wall and you can see other people chatting and you don't know what they're saying. And maybe they're saying, well, let's try that again like this. Let's try it again like that. And you can take that personally. But I took it as, no, they're trying to find the sound they want. I'm trying to give them the sound they want. And, this might take a while, but we're going to get it. And again, just trusting that I can take their direction and give them what they're asking for.
And what, do you think that the average person can make a year on something like this? I mean, we know the Hollywood announcers who've been around forever, I'm sure make a tremendous amount of money. But what kind of money do you look at?
Wow. So there's a study that came out, and I believe it was maybe the New York Times, that said that voice acting is now there's such a broad range of voice actors. First of all, there are people who there's a site called Fiverr. There are people that just get on there and kind of dabble as hobbyists, and they'll do any job for $5. And then there are people who make millions doing movie trailers. So it's really hard to give any type of average. But this particular article showed that voiceover was the third highest paying, or maybe it was the second highest paying freelance job, and on average, I think they were saying $72 an hour is what the average voice actor makes. So that's averaging the people who make millions with the people who make, $5 a year.
Coincidentally, today I'm going to a gaming conference, and a lot of it has to do with audio. Where do you think the big market is right now for voiceover?
Let's see. There's, gaming is huge right now, for sure. Explainer videos are really big. So those are the little, usually animated, sometimes whiteboard, sometimes just animated, like 1 to 2 minute internet videos that kind of showcase a product or service, and they're kind of story based. So a lot of companies are going that way. Animation is still huge, but it's harder to get like an animated series unless you're in New York or LA. What else is big?
Well, there would be
E-learning. E-learning
e-learning,
is huge. Yes, absolutely.
and then there's audiobooks. What about that?
Audiobooks are really big. You have to really enjoy that type of work because those are long studio hours, and a lot of times you have to do your own editing. So if you don't like editing, do not get into audiobooks.
Okay. Well, this has been fascinating, Carrie, and I I guess, like to pass on a lesson that through your experience that you might share. I think you've already done that, if I'm not mistaken, and you are a big advocate of a coach. But what would you tell someone who's coming along or deciding what to do next?
My biggest thing is to start somewhere, and to be persistent about it, or consistent. So what I tell people to do is grab your smartphone, grab whatever you've got, and just start recording yourself. Transcribe commercials from TV and radio, or read, magazine ads or billboards, and just start using your voice and start really listening back to it and start getting a feel for that. Of course, it's helpful, like we talked about, to get a coach, but just start somewhere. Start with just recording yourself, and then start thinking about next steps as you start to get more comfortable with your voice and get over that initial "I hate the sound of my voice" thing that most of us have.
Great. Well, listen, great success along the way, and I sure appreciate talking to you. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andy. This has been fun.
Well, that was really cool. This week's Next Gen Entrepreneur, she was Carrie Olson, a full-time entrepreneur, voiceover artist. And I want to thank you for joining us. Catch our next show in a week. Bye now.